Time now for Focus. Today we have a report on Burma's TNLA. It's one of the armed groups invited to the 21st Century Panglong Peace Conference at the end of the month. After last year's nationwide ceasefire agreement, the talks are seen as a significant step towards resolving decades-old conflicts. Clovis Kasali reports now on what the TNLA are fighting for.
Their training is finally over. Soon, they will be deployed to fight the enemy. The TNLA rebels have taken arms against the Burmese government. Before their first assignment, these men of all ages take part in the traditional water ceremony. It's the beginning of a new life.
Water is an element of nature that's strong and unbreakable. The ceremony shows our soldiers are together and united.
Close to the Chinese border, the Shan State is an area part of the Golden Triangle where much of the world's opium and heroin are produced. The rebel fighters control large parts of the land and jungle here. Colonel Tabon Kyo is a key figure, the deputy leader and a man wanted by the Burmese army. He's come to meet his troops, boost the morale and outline the strategy for the weeks to come. The colonel says his movement is fighting for equal rights for the Taungs.
Our living standard is very low. So if they see that they are government, we are within the country, we are kind of one of the Myanmar citizens, they must take care much more than now. If we didn't have armed organization, no people listen us. Because of that, we have to set up the arm. I think if we can solve the political solution, if we have the genuine federalism, if we have the equal right, I think we will not need different armed organization in this country.
The Taung National Liberation Army has around 5,000 men, all ready to die for the cause. The civilian population has found itself caught in the crossfire. Pak Kan is now a ghost town after army forces stormed in looking for rebel fighters. Atong takes us to where her house once stood. Little is left apart from rubble.
The army targeted and destroyed the next door house, and then the fire spread to mine. We were all afraid and were crying. We had to hide in the forest. Then all of the villagers moved to the Phang Nason.
Phang Nason is 2 kilometers away. Like many others, Atong and her children have found refuge in this place they now call home. A strong feeling of solidarity runs through the village, with locals helping those who fled the violence. Religious leaders have replaced politicians in the minds and hearts of these people who feel abandoned by authorities.
I don't have much hope with the new government. I just think that I and all the others here need to rely on one another to increase our income and our living standards. There will always be many changes of government, but I don't think whoever's in government will ever improve our lives in the village.
In villages under TNLA control, the rebels provide some kind of assistance and financial support to locals. Their help in times of desperate need enables them to win the support of many. They've also dispatched 250 TNLA nurses to visit villages and offer basic medical advice. Along with NGO workers, they are often the only ones who help these Burmese.
When we arrive, the first thing we do is to check around to find the children and the babies. We explain how to clean and show them how to brush their teeth. But also we go and help the elderly and those who live in farms outside of the village.
Among these children, some are bound to join the ranks of the TNLA in the years to come. The rebel army fighting for the Taung ethnic group argues that federalism is the only way to reach peace. Foreign Minister Aung San Suu Kyi has the ambition to be the one who will put an end to decades of civil war. But for that, she will need to negotiate with all the rebel groups and hear their demands.
I'm joined now by Burma expert Maëlle Renaud. Hello, thank you very much indeed for your time. Now, as I mentioned in the introduction to that report, at the end of the month, Burma will be hosting peace talks. There's been a little bit of confusion, though, over who will be attending exactly. Will all of Burma's armed groups be represented at that meeting?
No, not exactly. It's not known yet who exactly will be there and who will not be there. It's very complicated. You have to understand there's really three different players in that conference. One is the government that is led by Aung San Suu Kyi, of course. The other one is the Tatmadaw, which is the name of the Burmese army itself. And the third, of course, is made of all these ethnic armed groups that you've just described on the air. So, of course, the NLD and the government would want everyone to be sitting around the table, but for the Burmese army and the ethnic armed groups to agree is a much more complicated matter.
Would they all be given equal representation?
Well, again, it's very complicated. What does one mean by equal representation? It's the armed groups, of course, but there are also political parties that represent these ethnic nationalities. There are also civil society organizations. Women's groups, for example, are very important so that the voice of women would be heard. So, of course, not everyone will be sitting around any potential table. The idea would be that as many of them would, and that at least the panels would be as representative as possible.
And what's your feeling ahead of this conference? Are you optimistic? Do you think they'll manage to achieve much?
Well, it depends what one understands by achieving anything. I believe the NLD and Aung San Suu Kyi herself started with making a slight mistake, believing that they could achieve anything at all in one conference. That's not possible. That is not going to happen. But that this conference would be the right move in the right direction. That's exactly the right start to the process. That's for sure. That's not exactly the start to the process either. The peace process has started in August 2011. It was very difficult to achieve anything so far, except for that localized ceasefire agreement that's already been signed. Because again, it was basically the army against the ethnic armed groups. Now there's the NLD in power. Aung San Suu Kyi is much more respected, so the hopes are better. But again, nothing will be achieved in one conference. It's 60 years of fighting that needs to be resolved, so it's going to take a lot more than that.
And in the lead up to the conference, Aung San Suu Kyi went to China. What does China have to do with all of this?
Absolutely. Well, as your colleagues mentioned earlier, again, the conflicts that remain in Burma now are actually located all along the Chinese border. There's a bit more than 2,000 kilometers of border between Burma and China, and that's where the fighting is going on right now. So all these groups that are fighting against the Burmese army, you have to understand that all their logistics, including their weapons, come from behind them, which is basically China. So China is a very important partner indeed.
All right, thank you very much indeed.